Well, welcome everybody to beautiful Pachanga Resort and Casino. Now again, it is Pachanga, it's not Pachanga. All right, so make sure when you're around here. My name is Randy Chong, okay, and not Randy Chang for these next couple of days. For those that giggled, there's a story to that I'll tell again this evening at tonight's XView networking party that's going to be held right next door. So please attend that after today's presentations. We have now, this is our 9th summit, and it's grown bigger and bigger every year. Our presenters are the best in the world, and with one thing that we're trying to do is make everybody here a better teacher and coach. The theme you'll hear as we go through the presentations is going to be a simple one, is how do we get the people that we influence every day to play this game better? So we hope you will enjoy that through the next couple of days. Everybody got the book. Now this is also something that has grown over the years, and it's come to one of the best resources you can go to on the best practices in teaching and coaching, from growing your business, any type of mechanics, mental, club fitting, fitness. So please follow along, which is your program as well, just on steroids. There's the note, you can take notes in the back. I want to thank Bill Holbert, who's our chief editor, and Bryce Seaver and his staff that puts this together every year. So again, everything you need to know, teaching and coaching, is right in here. Thank you to all the contributors that a lot of you are in this room here today for contributing all the articles. And our partners as well is also in here. Without the partners, this thing can't happen. So the partners that you'll see, please visit them next door during the lunches, during our breaks. They're in there, again, and most of them all in there have all equipment, technology, everything you need, again, to make your job easier and more efficient. I want to recognize some people here that came from around the country. First, our president, Dr. Allison Kurt. Please stand up. Our hosts here today, Scott Mallory, Bill Chris from Journey at Pachanga. They're in the back. Please wave. Thank you. We had a skins game yesterday. That was a lot of fun. One skin was out. Bob Burke was the winner for that one skin. Bob, where are you? Very good. Our first presenter, Josh Alpert, is our 2023 Teacher and Coach of the Year. His company, Good Swings Happen, is going to introduce our first presenter, Josh Alpert.
Thank you, Mr. Chong. Before we get going, and this is just because this has now become a foundational habit of everything that I do as a coach when leading players, if everyone could just stand up really quickly, off your feet. Yes, you'll be sitting for the next while, so maybe this will be a good thing. Just want everyone just to take a deep breath. When you do, inhale through your belly, all the way up through your lungs, hold it for a second, and then gently exhale. And as you exhale, maybe just notice something about your body. Maybe it's your shoulders relaxing, maybe it's tingling in your hands or your feet. Something just to bring you to a place of presence and a place of relax before we begin our coaching summit. So if everyone just take a deep breath on your own, however you want to, but just get to a place of being present and relaxed. Nobody falls asleep at the beginning of these things yet. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. I'm grateful to be here and really appreciate the opportunity to present our first lead-off speaker for the 2025 California Teaching and Coaching Summit. While Rick is probably most publicly and famously known as a Golf Digest Top 50 coach, he was a former SCPGA teacher and Coach of the Year, California Teaching and Coaching Hall of Fame member. He is Colin Morikawa's lifelong, since the age of 8, both swing and mental game coach, obviously through 2 major championships and into current. He is also the founder and director of Flow Code Golf Academy, the leading mental game platform, leading players to shoot lower scores both on and off of the golf course. I've been fortunate to call him a dear friend for the better part of 20 years, and ironically met him at a function not that dissimilar to this one, as just someone that I shook hands with and saw on a name tag. We developed a friendship. I asked him to come to my facility and lead some mental game programs for juniors that I work with. And I would like to throw that out there at the first minutes of day 1 of this session. You do not know who is out there that you have not met and the potential impact that they can have on your lives. So I would highly encourage you to not only take in everything that the speakers have to say today, but also amongst us as colleagues, there are people that might be sitting next to you that will change your lives. And I would just encourage you to be open to whatever experiences happen here, because there's magic stuff as long as you're in a position to be willing to allow it to happen. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, in full focus, with confidence, and without any emotional distraction whatsoever, please put your hands together for my good friend, Dr. Richard Sessinhaus.
Thank you. All right. Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here. This means a lot to me for many reasons. One is that gentleman who just introduced me. As he said, we get to be with people that make a difference in the game. They become friends and work together. I want all of you to think back when you were a little kid and when you were learning a new sport for the first time. Do you remember those coaches? Those coaches that maybe it was a t-ball, right? And you're missing, and then you're learning how to play soccer, and then maybe you were lucky enough to start golf at an early age. The impact a coach made on you. I know for me, I played all these other sports, and golf, I started when I was 12 years old. And I was mentored by Tom Barber, one of the best. And he took me under his wing to learn the game. I got my first job at Griffith Park Golf Course. And I just remember what an impact a coach made in my life. We've all had, when we were a little kid, going all the way throughout. Now, look what we get to do. We get to be the coaches for that little junior golfer. What a privilege that is. And I remember about 20 years ago or so, it's early summer, I'm at the far end of the driving range at Shoal Canyon teaching, and a father and his son was about this tall, came walking up, and they said, are you Rick? I said, yes. They go, would you mind giving my son a lesson? He's taken some group classes, but we heard you work with some junior golfers, and we really love that opportunity. I said, oh, okay, great, let me see him hit. So he hits the swing, and in about, half a second, I said, you bet. That was Colin Morikawa. An 8-year-old who had these great fundamentals. He had that natural swing, and they were coming to me to help him in his journey. Now, did I know who he was going to be at that point? No. But I think all of us feel, again, the privilege and honor to take somebody who may or may not have played a lot and taken them on that journey of golf. So what I want to talk about today is about developing a junior golfer, and then a little bit more about my evolution as a coach, because it continues to change. But one thing doesn't change is that we're here of service and of value for those golfers. And so that relationship, as we all know, goes beyond golf. Let's admit it, right? Is that I've been able to go to some junior tournaments of his, U.S. Amateur. I was fortunate enough when he won the PGA Championship at Harding Park to be there when he made that putt and when he made that unbelievable eagle at 16. I don't take that lightly, okay? I know I'm very, very fortunate to be able to have a junior golfer that did this. And when we look at, again, that smile, right? Don't we want all our junior golfers to have that smile all the time? And I'll talk a little bit later, sometimes that smile is not there as often anymore. There's different pressures, there's different stresses that are on these young kids nowadays that was different than when I grew up, where it's, yeah, you played golf in the summer, you screw around, hit some balls, and you play a different sport, and you just had fun. Remember when it was just having fun? Let's bring fun back to that. So I'll talk a little bit about when I met Colin and kind of the development from that age 8 all the way through to when he turned pro. He already was very fundamentally sound. He played baseball, he played basketball, so he was a good athlete, good hand-eye coordination for sure. And from a swing standpoint, I'm not a method teacher, so it's not going to be everybody has to be in a certain spot. It was interesting because nowadays everybody talks about his bowed wrist and stuff. Well, that didn't develop until he was like 17. And they see his left hand is a little bit weak. I didn't change it because he kept hitting the ball damn straight all the time. Okay? I'm going, well, that's good, that's good, that's good. And when we look at the swing stuff, I think it's fascinating, and all of you have had that, where maybe it's an 8-year-old, 12-year-old, 16-year-old, just the evolution of their body, right? The evolution of their coordination, their athleticism can change the dynamics severely. So you're an 8-year-old, he's swinging freely. When he was about 15, he was hitting little draws. I know he's known to hit a fade, but little draws. And part of that was because physically, he only could hit draws. And we started to get him a physical trainer at that point, getting him screened. And like a lot of 15-year-olds, a little bit weak core. He also had weak glute muscles, especially on the left-hand side. So you started to see a little bit more slide, which then created a tilt, which got him under, and then a little flippy. He didn't hit big hooks, but a little flippy. So when he was 16 or so, I asked him, I go, we're going to get ready for college here pretty soon. What kind of ball flight you want to see? He goes, Rick, I just like how a fade looks, okay? I go, okay, but if we're going to hit a fade, we're going to have to do some different things. We're going to have to get you a little bit stronger on this side to be able to rotate so we're not tilting back. And so he was all in. And that's the part, is that I have other players that I've worked with that hit draws, okay? So this is not about one size fits all, but it's about developing that player. What he was wonderful as a student standpoint is he was open to learning. I will also talk a little bit later how that landscape's changed a little bit, but he was a sponge. His father was at every single lesson, and many of you may say, oh, that must have been horrible. No, it was awesome. He was his parents were unbelievable. His dad was there to support his child, which again, thank you. We talked about how to hit different shots. I talked a lot about exit positions for him to be able to hit fades and draws and highs and straights. And here's the key thing, I wasn't coaching him to win his SCPGA event that weekend. That was irrelevant. He had goals, he wanted to play college golf, so we were looking at what's 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years ahead that we need to develop. And some of that might be flighting iron, some of it might be wedge work, that maybe short term is not going to see that instant gratification. And I was so thankful for not only him, but the parents that said, oh, we trust you, Rick, that's great. Because sometimes these parents, why isn't little Johnny in the top 3 in this U.S. golf tournament when they're 8 years old? Chill, okay? We need to develop these junior golfers. So we looked at his physical side when he was about 15 years old. Again, highly athletic, so we had good coordination to work with, great hand-eye coordination. I'm very much into club face control, so we did a lot of punch shots throughout the years. One, it strengthened his core. One, he had awareness of what the club face was doing through impact and post-impact. His tempo is interesting because he is calm, kind of quiet, reserved, and it really matched him to be kind of that patient, smooth backswing. So again, that's kind of how it worked for him. Sometimes he looks too slow, but for him, that's his. So we're matching his personality with his tempo, and as we went on, a lot of it became now about, as I mentioned, how do I get him better a few years from now? He played in SCPGA events. It was very important for him to play locally. And then he's starting to get Toyota Tour Cup, AJGA. And one of my favorite stories that I think epitomizes what Colin was as a junior golfer was his willing to learn, his growth mindset. Never made any excuses. So he's 16 years old. He's playing an AJGA event in PGA National, the bear trap, right? We've seen that on the Honda Classic back in the day of the PGA Tour. And I had already seen that he had shot 84 in one of the rounds, which is probably his highest round he'd ever shot in an AJGA event. And he sees me at Chevy Chase Country Club, comes out of the car with his dad, and before I can kind of say anything, he goes, "Rick, we have to work on how to flight irons better. It got really windy out there, and I lost control of the ball." I'm like, "You got it." Instead of some juniors, "Rick, I didn't play well because it was windy." And then there's no follow-up, right? "I would have played well if it wasn't windy." Well, it was windy. You weren't prepared. But he's like, "We can't have that happen again. I'm going to be in that situation in the future. I need to be ready for that." And so now we're looking at the flighting of irons and looking at ball positions. And we did most of our lessons on the golf course. 70% of our lessons were done on the golf course. Chevy Chase Country Club, fun little 9-hole, and I'll get into how I did some of those lessons. But he's playing, and he doesn't play well, and he's not looking for excuses. He's going, "I got to get better. This has exposed me." We talk about blind spots a lot. He was very fortunate with his family to be able to travel and play at Pinehurst for U.S. Kids and play in some different amateur events and AJGA. So he did have that luxury to be able to put himself in many different situations, which was awesome as a coach, right? You want to see how he plays in Florida on Bermuda. You want to see how he plays in the Pacific Northwest or whatever it may be. And they were willing to help him with that. We talked a lot about process goals from week to week in his tournaments, not necessarily about the score. I want people to do well, certainly, and them holding trophies, they should be proud of themselves for that. But it was always what led to that. Was it, did you stick to your game plan? We talked about pre-shot routine with visualization, using a shot tracer. So he had clear intentions on shots. He had clear intention of prep. And that's actually what we measured things on, especially when he went to college, because I wasn't seeing him every week. We would do calls usually every Wednesday morning because he had just finished a college tournament. We would now go, "Okay, what did we do well? You tell me some great stuff. What did we learn? Rick, I learned that." And then what do we need to work on, right? So that was always kind of the three questions, right? What do we do well? We've got to frame that first because everybody wants to tell me all the bad stuff. What did we learn? And then what do we have to work on? So that's what we did through college a lot, is after every single event, and then pre-event, when he had a practice round, talking about how his strategy was. What was his practice round strategy, and what did he learn from that? So he was always wanting to learn, which I appreciated. I really did. Didn't have to force him to pay attention. I get the question a lot, when did you know Colin was going to be great? And I tell people a story of when I was coming home, and I sat down with my wife, and she's like, how'd the day go? And I go, "Oh, it went great." I go, "Sweetie, this kid is unbelievable. I've never met a kid like this before." And he was 12 years old at the time. And it had zero to do with his physical skills, by the way. It's somebody who showed up to a lesson focused, calm, asked good questions, coachable, focused, calm, didn't get emotionally all over the place. I'm going, it's like an adult. And I appreciated that because now as coaches, we have something to work with now. And that's when I knew that potentially he could reach whatever heights he wanted. We know there's lots of twists and turns with junior golfers going through college. They might get injured, they might get demotivated or whatever, but at that time I go, wow, this is really cool to have somebody who loves the game so much, who wants to learn, who's open to it. Part of, and this will get into my biases later today, is about what his mindset was, which I see with great players. And part of this mastery mindset is their goal is not as much what am I going to do this week, it's this long-term vision of I'm mastering golf, which all of us are still trying to do, by the way. Okay? But it's this pursuit of that greatness. It's the pursuit of that journey that keeps them motivated, and he had that at a very early age. Along with that is the growth mindset that he believes he can learn something. He's willing to try different things, also very important. As I mentioned, he doesn't make any excuses. He never plays the victim. He always wants to know how he could have done something better. And again, I think that's getting lost a little bit with some junior golfers now, as we get into short-term fixes, or I have to win this tournament, or the ranking points, and we lose a little bit of the whole vision behind it. So one of the things that I learned early as a coach, and I think this was because I actually didn't learn golf until I was 12 or 13, is I came from other sports first. So my dad was a football coach, so you go to a football practice, and what do? You do scenarios, and you do 2-minute drills if you're the quarterback, and you're doing plays, and I thought that's what practice was. And then you go to golf, and you learn that practice has nothing to do with scenarios. It has to do with let's hit the same ball over and over again on a range setting, which rarely even have a target, no consequences. And I go, this is strange to me, coming from other sports. So as I started coaching, starting 30 years ago, yes, I gave traditional swing lessons and golf, but I go, how do I help them play better? You got to take them on the course. And so from an early time in my career, I started to utilize the course. I was fortunate that I had 2 facilities that were open to have that. One was Shoal Canyon Golf Course, a public course in Glendale. They allowed me at certain times of the day, usually late afternoon, to take golfers out there. And then Chevy Chase Country Club was unbelievable generous to allow me to do that also. I know not all of you have access to courses that are open to that. I was fortunate that I could do that. And it becomes a playground. And that's the thing, even to this day, Colin and I talk about the Chevy Chase days, and there was a YouTube video of us going back there, and him just remembering how much fun he had playing, but he was practicing. He was hitting 3 balls. We were playing cross-country golf. This tee went to a whole other green. It's a playground. Think about when you're playing your best. You're having fun. You're being creative, your imagination. But a lot of us have turned this game now into, I'm a robot. I need to be perfect. Is my P2 position where it needs to be? Instead of, let's go hit some golf shots. Let's see how much we can curve that ball. Let's see how much spin we can have on that. That, to me, is playing. And we're losing that, I think, and the juniors are feeding into the system, unfortunately, a little bit too much. So I would take them on the golf course, and it was with all students, by the way. But what I found is that students, I don't care what age, they go, you mean my pro's going out on the course with me? Wow, that's cool. I've never had that before. And then when they're out there, and I don't play during any of this, they're playing and they're hitting multiple shots, and I'm giving that. And now you see different things, don't you? You see how they maybe or maybe not have a pre-shot routine, or what kind of decision-making are they doing? What's their attitude? Are they nervous in front of me, right? To me, that's more of what may show up under stress. Might as well see it as a coach. So it was always important for me to take somebody on the golf course. The drill that I always did was a 3-ball drill. I remember clearly to this day. I was taking Colin. It was the first hole at Chevy Chase Country Club. It's a short par 5, straight uphill, very narrow. And sometimes I'll throw balls, and I threw a ball as a second shot, and the lie was below him in about 1.5 inches of rough, straight uphill, 182. And I would throw that down. I'd say, Colin, what's your plan? I think back, and let's say he's 14 or something like that. Okay, I'm gonna grab a 4-iron, okay, and the ball's below my feet. I'm aiming a little left, and hit a shot, and no matter what it did, we always learned from it. So let's say that ball faded even more than he thought. Then I go, okay, Colin, you get a second opportunity. Would you change anything there? Would you change the decision? Would you change the execution of the decision? You're going to change clubs? You're going to change? And this got him going, no, I still like the 4-iron, but the ball was further below my feet than I thought, and the club got a little caught. Okay, next I'm going to aim a little more left. I'm going to grip down a little bit more. And now he's problem solving. I am not telling him how to do it. And then he hit a shot. Now the third ball was always my option. Well, Colin, let's try the lofted hybrid that you have here, because I don't think you're going to have to reach for it as much. I think you can swing smoother so we're not off balance. And I tell him why that I'm asking him to do this, and then he would have that third ball, which was my option. I did this on all parts, a little bit of short game, a little bit of bunker play, and it was always the learning. How quickly can we process and learn? Immediate feedback is very, very important for learning. But it was never him hitting a shot and me thinking, oh, that's a horrible decision. Oh my God, right? You start working with some good players, their decision is a hell of a lot better than mine was ever going to be. They know their game, they're seeing different things, different windows, and I go, wow, that's cool. I'm now learning from them. So early on in my career, I would call myself a teacher and an instructor. I'm telling you what to do. Now I call myself a coach. I'm working with the student to learn about their tendencies, about their shot patterns, about what's going through their mind, what's the best play for them. And I go, oh, okay, now I see what's happening up here. That improves me as a coach. It's interactive back and forth, which is vital. And again, he was open to this. I've been fired by a few junior golfers back in the day because the father said, they need to be on the range. They need to be on the range. We need to work on their 7-iron. And I said, it's not how I coach. We'll work a little bit on this, but we have to see, does that even translate over there? So I stick to my guns now as my own philosophy, and that has helped me be who I have become. So this is my favorite thing because, again, we are helping them be autonomous about making decisions. They're not always relying on, oh, what's coach going to say? I hope I'm making the right decision. We get past that pretty quick. Creativity starts to spark up. I'm putting them behind trees. I'm doing flop shots. And you see these shots they're hitting. I'm going, whoa. I never would have thought about that before. Now, I have more tools in my toolbox to work with somebody else. But when we played as kids and we're shooting hoops, we're playing football with our friends, it's just experience and try different things. But so often we're putting people in this, you have to be a certain way, and I think it's really getting in the way of playing golf. So I want to transition to another player that I've been working with, and I'll do some comparing and contrasting here in a moment. So Colin, from age 8 to 18, I saw him about every Tuesday afternoon at 3:30. I had it in my old book. Most of those lessons were on the golf course. When he went to college, we certainly checked in. When he came in, he went to Cal Berkeley. He would check in, we see him. And we were continuing, and I was his putting coach and short game coach. I was everything, even the first a couple years on tour. Jaden is a completely different type of player, and how that relationship started was completely different. Jaden is 15 years old now. I started with him when he was 11 years old. he was already super good. He was a prodigy. He was one of those with the plastic club when they're, 16 months old, smashing it, right? This guy's a stud. So now I'm brought in to somebody who's already been very well coached, who's got a natural talent, and this was different for me in a good way. And so some of the cool things with Jaden is what he's accomplished at a young age is pretty amazing to me. So a couple years ago, he went through local qualifying at the US Open. So then he went to sectionals. Youngest ever to win the SCGA Amateur, not junior, SCGA Amateur, Satakoy. Okay, I think he finished 10 under for the whole tournament and shot 66 or something to finish it off. He's going against college players, they're just phenomenal. And then this past spring, the youngest to ever win the California State Championship for high school, shot 62 at Poppy Hills, course record. And then he's won Toyota Tour Cup events. He's been on the underrated tour, the Steph Curry Tour, which has a whole other discussion about how awesome what Steph Curry is doing for junior golf is through the roof, giving people opportunities to play unbelievable golf courses, and they're paying for the families to go. That's a whole other story. So we always have to applaud Steph Curry and what they're doing for the underrated tour. So here's somebody at an early age. He was winning, very, very good. So now he's coming to me for more guidance. And again, it's different because you already have somebody who has all these skills. He has a totally different personality than Colin. Colin, very cerebral, very calm, asks questions when it's important to him. Jaden, when we're doing practice rounds or doing lessons, we're goofing around, trash talking, funny, goofy. I mean, he's a kid. And yet, he's hyper competitive. And what's changed a lot, and I think all of you know this, is now these junior golfers have teams around them now. Like I was the one-trick pony with Colin, and now, I'm his swing and mental coach, and you got Ken Mango, who's one of our best PTs, who's in the audience here. He's the fitness. Brendan Flynn's doing putting. I've had him do with Scott Lynn for some force plates, and then he's been with TaylorMade and Callaway to get the best equipment you can get. And you're like, he's 15 years old, right? He's got better teams than some of the tour guys. But we're seeing that a lot now with junior golf. Whether we say it's good or bad, I'm not going to judge that. I think it's how you do it. But it's putting more pressure on everybody because these parents, their resources are being put out for these kids. And it's like, whoa, wow, right? So when you have somebody who had great coaching ahead of time, he already has great fundamentals. I think he came to me a little bit more for that, again, that development of what it's going to look like in college and pro. He wants to definitely turn pro. Totally different than the relationship with Colin. And we're seeing these players at younger and younger ages that are ready. It's mind-boggling, okay? It's exciting, but are they still allowed to be kids? Are they still allowed to play golf? Or is it always, we've got to get ready for our next tournament, we got to prep? It's like, cool the jets, let them play some golf, have some fun. So it has been interesting, and I always kind of joke is that, Jaden's got more Instagram followers than me, everybody's following Jaden, and that puts different pressures on our players too, right? So when you start looking at commonalities, totally different personalities, but now we're saying, okay, yes, are they talented? Fine. That takes it to a certain point. But I love the competitive drive, okay? I love that, yes, they don't want to lose. Man, they want to win, okay? They have high standards for themselves. Don't make excuses. And you start seeing that in some of the lessons where I always compete against my students the last 5 minutes of any lesson. Okay. One, I want to see how they react. So I've had some juniors when they were 12 or 13 years old, And let's say it's a little simple chipping competition, we're on the course. I said, okay, closest to the hole wins. And if I heard this, but Rick, that's not fair, you're a professional, and I'm a 12-year-old. Then I go, I don't think they got what it takes then. You ask these guys, okay, we're gonna do a competition. They go, great, I'm gonna beat your bleep, that Jaden would say, but I'm gonna beat you. They didn't care if they were 8 years old, 12, they wanted to beat me. They believed they could, okay? That spark, we need that, because golf is gonna kick you in the stomach a lot, and you need to be able to bounce back, and I think that's part of the competitive drive. Both like being outside their comfort zones. This is, again, a debatable thing, is when you have a junior golfer that is super good, how many levels do you allow them to skip, right? And both, I think, have done it the right way. Colin rarely played outside of his age group. Jaden, yes, plays a little bit outside of his age group sometimes, but he handles it. If we get and throw them, oh, yeah, my kid hits it a long way, they're 12 years old, they should be against 15-year-olds. And then they get smoked, and then they lose their confidence. It's like, let them learn how to win at the different levels. And so I think comfort zone is they wanted to feel that. They weren't forced to be in that. And again, what I've appreciated with both is they're in it for the long haul. It's not just short-term fixes. Okay, so Jaden, it was funny, even before he won the high school event, he wasn't playing fantastic. He had a couple things, but it wasn't like, oh my God. It's like, okay, let's reboot. Let's get ready for this. We had some summer stuff we're getting ready for. So both of them can see big picture a lot when I'm seeing a lot of juniors and families that are only into what's happening next week, and they become very reactionary and quick fixes, and unfortunately get into some bad habits. I've already talked about they love to learn. I think, Colin is always asking those questions. Jaden is very good now. Self-awareness has improved for him of coming back from a tournament. He just played a tournament, the Steph Curry, underrated, at Liberty National in New Jersey. Phenomenal place, right? And he's coming back, and we're talking about what he did well, and he's having more now self-awareness, right? That's what we as coaches are helping them do. What are you thinking, feeling, and doing while you're performing? What could we do a little different next time? And when we build that up, then they have, again, that autonomy that they can take on a lot of different skills as they go. And the last bullet point for all of us might be the most important one, the parents, right? And so when we look at parents, come on. There we go. I've had to change how I do first sessions with junior golfers. Probably started that about 6, 7 years ago. I make it mandatory that the parent is there for the first session. Now, a lot of my business now is mental game only, but it's getting clear expectations and boundaries and what's going on in that relationship. In sports psychology, we know that intrinsic motivation, doing something for the love of it, far outweighs extrinsic motivation, which is, I'm doing this to get a college scholarship. I'm doing this so people on Instagram can tell me how great I am, okay? There's nothing wrong with that motivation, by the way, to a point, but it's getting flipped a little bit. I asked Colin, this is earlier in the year, I said, do you enjoy the game as much as you did as a kid? He goes, I actually enjoy it more. I go, wow, that's pretty cool. Because it's this never-ending for him mastery and learning and get to see all these different experiences and how I can do better, right? And that's what makes me happy is that, yes, are these guys still motivated by wins? Of course. But when it's deep down, like, I love this game and I want to get better at it, it's pretty cool. Some of the things with parents on the negative side would be we're getting them jumping coaches a lot now, okay? So there's no continuity, and what happens to the junior is that it's more confusion than ever before. And I've been on both sides of this, by the way, so I kind of know how it feels on both sides, is that people go to a different coach from me, they try somebody else out, and then I've had it come vice versa. I get that to a point, but it's the amount of bouncing around that is mind-boggling to me, right? I might ask somebody, so, how many swing coaches have you had? Well, we've seen about 6 people in the last 8 months. I'm going, holy crap, right? Because good luck having any kind of concept of what they're supposed to do. So that's, I think, a parent problem more than it is a kid problem, because it just keeps exaggerating, right? You go to the junior tournament, and little Johnny's not playing well, so the parent asks, Chris's parents, who do you work with? Oh, we work with da-da-da. Oh, okay. It's like, your coaches here, we care, right? We're going to do what's best for the junior golfer, but that is a big challenge that I'm seeing right now. And I don't know if I have a solution for you. I'm just saying it's that I try in that first session to educate parents on what this process is. If they're coming to me and say, yes, little Johnny wants a college scholarship, and they're 14 years old, I go, well, here's some of the minimum standards that we're going to have. And parents, here's some standards that you're going to have. And I'll admit this, the first, let's say, 10 years, those parents may or may not have listened to me, but I'm fortunate enough that I have worked with some really good players, and because Colin Morikawa's parents are unbelievably positive, I can say, Colin's parents, this is how they acted. Oh, really? Yeah, supportive. They just wanted little Colin to enjoy the game. That's all. It's like, oh, really? And I said, yeah, and Colin never won an AJGA tournament. No. I go, no, he didn't. And I joke, I said, Colin, do you think you could win one now? You think you can win an AJGA now? Come on, we didn't do that. Okay. The problem is the expectations and the concepts they're so unrealistic. And so as coaches, we're already behind the 8 ball. So I'm trying to educate them. I'm saying, this is what I'm going to expect from your child. This is what I'm going to expect from you. And as you develop that relationship, I think it's crucial, because the parents they're going to trust you more, and they're going to look at you as the expert. They're chirping, and they're hearing all kinds of other things, yet we are the experts on this. The other one is, back to motivation, is a lot of these juniors now are only getting attention when they win. And a lot of that with social media is, little Johnny has his medal, put that out there, great. Please, celebrate that, by the way, that's not the point. But the point is, could you add to that, I was so proud of little Johnny, yes, he won, but you should have seen his resilience when he made a double bogey on that, right? Like, Roger, I love your post when, the other day, you had somebody, I think he made a triple bogey on like the second hole, right? And you're saying how proud he is of taking how they bounced back. That's what we're celebrating, everybody. These parents need to know that, okay? Not just they're only going to get attention if they have this thing around their neck, okay? And I'm talking at every age. I don't care if it's an 8-year-old, but it becomes more prevalent because the more of the pressure with rankings and stuff is that it becomes only about outcome. And that is troublesome, to say the least. So we know we need to help these parents. And part of it is, when I look at juniors, is I feel I'm a very supportive, positive coach, okay? There's more pressure on them than ever before. I came from a family that my dad was a football coach, so I played football, and I understand the expectations and the pressures that go with that. And sometimes that can go sideways, for sure. But as a little bit of a summary, I feel my coaching's gotten better because I'm asking better questions. I'm not just telling them what to do. I'm getting a feedback loop to learn from them, because now they have more self-awareness as they go. I'm very much into language of how they're perceiving and coming back to me. That's like back to, if their first thing to me is, Rick, I shot 75 because of the bumpy greens, and I'm gonna go, okay, we're already in victim mode, already in excuse mode. Or, Rick, I think next time I can adjust to the bumpy greens a little bit more, because they're probably not gonna break as much. Some of it's out of my control. I'm gonna just stay in the fire and go, okay, now we got it, right? So language of success, how are they perceiving things and going about that? And this is what I've learned a lot being on tour now. I've learned a lot from Jamie, some other great coaches, is you just see these players, they're different. Their standards, their habits, their behaviors, another level. And they're already talented. And so it's back to working with junior golfers, whether it's Jaden or someone else, is like, you're showing up to play your best golf. Did you go to sleep at the appropriate time? How was the hydration we talked about? Did you do some of the breath work that we did? And if it's yes, then I go, fantastic, awesome. But if they play poorly and they didn't do any of those standards that we put out there, I'm like, okay, maybe we got to learn from that. But the elite players do things differently, and it has nothing to do with their talent. Okay? So these are my non-negotiables. I think it's just so important to see the player playing golf, challenging them, competing against them, putting them in spots that they've never been, and seeing how do they behave differently. What are the skill sets? Are the skills actually better? I've had some players that on the range, they're going through it kind of in a very mediocre way, and then when you get them on the course, they light up. Oh yeah, coach, I can't wait to hit the shot. And you say, whoa, this is actually a positive, right? Other people might be the opposite. They think they're getting judged, and oh my God, if I screw up in front of my coach, good. I want them to admit that. I feel nervous in front of you, coach. Great. What would happen if we're on the first tee and we're nervous? What are the things that we can do? And then I start including a little bit more of the mental game. Okay, we got some breath work. We got some reframing of the situation. That's the experience. On the range only gets us so much. On the putting green, only so much. So that's one of my non-negotiables. We have to be out on the golf course with them. Having fun, I think I've always done a good job with that. But back about learning from other coaches, Mr. Josh Alpert by far has taught me how to have more fun in my lessons, okay? We, as the coach, we need to be in the state of fun and creativity, okay? So I don't want to be super serious because then the person's like, oh, this is super serious. I guess I got to be like this. But if I'm goofing around and if I'm creative, and they'll feel, oh, you mean it's okay to kind of put a smile on my face? And like, yes. And I'm going to be as goofy as you are. I mean, who the hell walks up to frickin' welcome to the jungle here, right? I want it to be okay to have fun and to be creative. This is playing golf, not working golf. And we can see this very early on with these juniors. Can we get some of that going? I do encourage failure as much as possible. That's why I put the 3-ball drill out there, because they know they're going to get other opportunities to get better. But then at the end of that session, there's competition where it's only 1 ball. So now we're learning about competing that you could fail, but did we actually apply the skills that we did, not only in that session, but prior sessions, to be ready to go? The competition, and again, I'll talk a little bit about my company, Flow Code, and working with Josh and Hallam and some of these great coaches, is we know golf is more than just golf. It's learning about life over and over and over and over again. And we get this great vehicle to be able to do that when that junior golfer is getting older and older and older, okay? You try to change a 35-year-old, a little more challenging, right? They got their habits, this is just who I am. We get to mold these junior golfers. We get to show them that failure is going to help them. We get to get them creative. I mean, again, blessed to be able to do that. We've talked about this already, but challenges in junior golf is only getting more exaggerated, magnified. Yes, the team of coaches, could it be a positive? It could. I think at times we get overcoach the kids, and everything's so technical now. I just like maybe minimize how much they get coached. I think the tournament schedule, whew, especially in this area, right? Is there an off season anymore? I don't know. Maybe late November to December. But being in SoCal, we've got the great SCPGA, right? We have the California Junior Tour, we've got the Ventura, we've got San Diego Junior, we got future champions, we got AJGA. They could find a place to play every single week if they wanted to. But should they? Probably not. Can we compartmentalize that a little bit more, get them ready for late spring, summer, kind of periodization, which they do in other sports? Maybe. But we live in such a wonderful area with weather and all these great golf courses, these parents think it's compete, compete, compete. I said there has to be a time when we can learn from what we did and have 4 weeks off to make adjustments if needed. It's hard to make changes in the middle of a season if you're always trying to get ready for the next one. So I see tournament schedule as a challenging one. I think some juniors are playing up levels when they're not ready, or they're playing in a national event when they're not ready. You could say, well, that's outside their comfort zone, but it could be a point where it blows them out of the water and they lose their confidence. My next one here is a bias. You could completely disagree. We're getting speed obsessed with the golf swing. And I don't know. I think even like working with Colin when he was 15 years old, and he couldn't even maintain core position here, him swinging faster to me, and I'd have to talk to Ken about this, which I've talked a little bit about it. Is that really beneficial? I don't know. It seems like I'm emphasizing something he can't do faster. And I've seen more injuries. I've seen more college players get injured. I think we're going to find a balancing act here pretty quickly with all the speed training and the fitness and the technology. So that's a bias, everybody, on my end. But, he's got to hit it far. It's like, okay, Colin was always a short knocker. He grew when he was 16 years old. That was his big thing. He's just above tour average in speed. He's done pretty good for himself, right? If hitting it 20 yards further would be beneficial, you would say yes, obviously, but if it's going this way, maybe not so much. So I look at that a little bit differently. We have parents, again, that are unrealistic. They think a little Johnny should never have an over par round in their life. They should never three-putt. They should always beat this person. And it's like, and that unrealistic expectations lead to frustrations for not only the parent, but for the child. If we define frustration, it's not meeting expectations. So we're seeing this bubbling up of negative energy, negative emotion built on, because everything's on these unrealistic goals as we go. Talked about jumping coaches already, and then the last two are kind of the same, is pressure of rankings, and that's when people come to the mental game, that tends to be one of the biggest things. I'm a sophomore in high school, I'm behind it, I'm not even top 200 in my class, I'm not gonna get, and you just hear all this anxiety and build up, and saying, okay, what's our plan? I don't know, I just gotta play better. It's like, well, okay. And they're so obsessed with rankings, they're way away from how we play the game. Because now that one putt, I gotta make this putt. If I don't, oh my God, and then my ranking point is gonna go down again, and then my dad's gonna yell at me. That's what's going through their mind. Anxiety and fear is coming through that because everything's measured off of this rankings and college recruiting. Yes, we want goals, we want to go towards something, of course. But let's look at that as excitement. Let's look at I can't wait to take on this goal. I'm a little bit behind, but what's our plan for the next 6 months? I'm going to play these tournaments. I'm going to do this a little bit better. I'm going to refine. We've lost that plan because it's just obsession with what the next one's going to be about. And then social media, that's a whole other hour-long conversation, isn't it? What are we putting out there? What is the junior putting out there? What are the parents putting out there? Everybody's comparing themselves and, that person won another event. I thought I was better than them. Now, oh my God. Comparisons all over the place. Okay? Colin was never the best in his class. He didn't win an AJGA. He didn't, but his trend's like this. Okay? And then, boom, he goes to college. He didn't win his first couple years in college. Then he won 5 times, and then on tour. One of my favorite things is when he turned pro it was him, Victor Hovland, Matthew Wolff, and Justin Suh. And it was like, who's going to play better? Who's going to be out there, right? And Colin, a few people said that. But it's like he just doesn't dominate a golf course, right? He doesn't hit the ball really far, but he knows how to play golf. right? But we're so obsessed with how far somebody hits it, is that we lose sense that it is lowest score wins, but how did you get there as you played golf? So the pressure of the social media is only mounting. And I think the other part, as it links back to coaches, is these players are more, and I'm using this word very loosely, educated more, because they've got all this access to all of this technology now and all of the social media. So those that have social media accounts here, they're following you. And then, hey, what can I learn from Roger? And what can I learn from Josh? And it's like, and they're going, oh, that seems like a cool drill. And it's like, and that might be a little different. Probably wasn't built for that person. So now they're going through all these different concepts. So when I say educated, they may know more about certain parts of the golf swing or this type of thing of angle of attack on chipping. Sounds great, but because they haven't been in front of a coach, they're really not knowing what it means. So they're more confused. They're trying things more often than staying on plan. And then I think the other technologies, and I use some of these, so it's not knocking, right? We have OnForm, we have other Sportsbox, we have other things that now, man, you got your phone there and we're getting all this data. We know so much about our golf swing. Is that good or bad? I don't know. And at Flow Code, we want to know how your brain's working, right? So we have all that too. So there's a lot of stuff that we're trying to get metrics on now, and people are now more obsessed with perfect than play. We are the experts, and that's what we have to remember. Technology is there to supplement what we do. Do not let the technology coach. That's not going to work very well. I mean, everybody's concerned about AI this and AI that. Okay, AI could get some basic biometrics on you and stuff like that, but how you communicate, how you have that relationship, you're the expert, that's what's always going to mean the biggest difference. And junior golfers, as we said, we have such an impact on them. They're, though, getting down these rabbit holes that they're not ready for yet. So I always share, so what are some concepts you have? Or who's your favorite player on tour? What do you like about their golf swing, right? And I get these different things. Or I saw this one thing, and yeah, they said to do this, and I go, oh, okay. How would that help you? I don't know, but that player I love, and they did that. Well, yeah, they're 32 years old, and they can club head speed of 120 miles an hour. I don't know if that equates to you as a 12-year-old. So these are some of the concerns that I have that we still have to step up as coaches to take responsibility for. They have more information. We need to help them discern what that information means and then be able to, again, put in a plan behind it. So I'm going to shift gears just a little bit here. Coaching for me has always been an evolution. When I played college golf at Cal State Northridge as a very average D1 player, pretty good ball striker. I was a hothead, so I broke a few clubs in my day. And really, I didn't know what it took at that time to be a great player. But even earlier than that, I played other sports, and I had frustration issues. I had to go to counseling. And it wasn't sports psychology, it was counseling, because I couldn't deal with losing. I couldn't deal with letting my dad down. I couldn't deal with that. And it was helpful. Okay? But at that point, it already put in my head there's more than just the golf swing or my physical ability or my talent, is that I was having a hard time performing because of some other stuff that was happening up here and the pressures that I didn't want to let my dad down and all these type of things. So that was kind of the starting, is like, And then you play enough golf, and you think you have this great golf swing, and you play, and you shoot like 72, and you're like, okay. And then this person, and they shoot 66, you go, how the heck did that happen? My swing's better. Well, they shot lower scores, guess what? That's all that matters. So I was going, there's got to be more than just this perfect golf swing. And that's when I started to have an obsession through college and afterwards, that the different puzzle pieces of performance. And I felt the mental game was lacking at that point. I saw a sports psychologist at that point, and it was helpful, but it still wasn't what I thought it should be. It wasn't training. It was just kind of a nice conversation and be positive and go. Yeah, but I just snap hooked another ball low B and missed another cut. Yeah, let's be happy about that. No, that's not positive thinking. Okay, so just realize that my passion is to help that junior golfer who is going through their fears, their anxieties, I don't want to let my parents down, because I have felt those same things. They don't have the tools. Most of them don't. Josh and I were talking last night about one of his clients who was in a tournament, a junior, 15-year-old girl, and a parent of somebody else came in and said that she's cheating in the middle of the round. What's a 15-year-old supposed to do? It shook her. And luckily, she's got Josh as a mental game coach to go, I don't know what the heck to do. And so now you have a conversation. It had nothing to do with their putting stroke that day. But she's like, I got this. I didn't do anything wrong. Right? That's happening more and more and more. We need to be that foundation for them too. You don't need to have a doctorate in sports psychology to help. We all do this all the time anyways. Get to learn who they are, what are their fears, their anxieties, be there to listen. Once they can process it better, they're going to be much better, okay? So I went down the personal development road, the Tony Robbins. Yes, I'm the one who's gone on the hot coals and gone over that fire and all that stuff. And a lot of that was for my own development, not for other people. And then in the last 7-8 years, it's gone now more down to something called flow, which is an actual researched state that we're in. We perform our best. We feel our best. Brainwave activity is a little calmer. Neurochemicals are there to help us focus and feel good. But it's a state we can get into. So I was always obsessed with, what's the peak state, right? It's called the zone, right? Now I use the word flow. Learning and performance is state dependent. So if I'm in a fear state, I'm probably going to perform differently than I'm in a flow state. But are we helping our students with their state management? Many are, but keep doing that, okay? Get them in the state they need to be able to learn and to perform. So now where I'm going down rabbit holes is we have all this unbelievable technology, on-form, all these cool stuff. We got Foresight, we got all these things that are doing all the data. But I'm obsessed with how do we start measuring the mental game, right? Because back then, like I said, I went to a sports psychologist. It was a positive. He goes, hey, yeah, just do this. And like, okay, what do I do? What do I train? Do I know if I'm getting better at it? So the mental game is still behind all those other ones. But when you think about, I always ask people 3 questions in an audience, is like, is the mental game of golf important? Are we in agreement with that? Okay. How many of you train the mental game? A few, good. If you ask that same question to a 15-year-old junior golfer, is the mental game of golf important? They'll go, yeah. Do you train it? What does that mean? What's training mean? So now we have a disconnect. And then finally, what we want is, how do you define the mental game? Then we can have a discussion. What's the mental game? Oh, it's positive thinking, it's breathing, it's visualization. I go, great, all of those things. But we have to get very clear on what's the state that we want them to be in, right? We want them to be in a flow state. So what I coach is, what's the state somebody is in? And so I'm creating more training programs. We're out front. We have our Focus Calm device measuring brainwave activity. I use heart rate variability. I do some different tools on that. I just opened up an indoor facility in Burbank, and I'm having so much fun being in a simulator and putting people in different situations while they got the brainwave on, while we're doing breath work, and it's like a little experiment, right? But I want them to leave saying, okay, Rick, that breath work, when I did the longer exhale, I did feel calmer. I'm going to integrate that now in my pre-shot routine, especially if I start feeling my heart pump. I'm going to do that long. Now we've given them some tools. We very much want to be able to train those tools off of the golf course first, and as we go with that. So we want to measure this, right? And I'm trying to tie mental performance into everything that we do. So as I mentioned, I'm trying to quantify the mental game. Focus Calm is a basic EEG device that goes on the forehead, measures brainwave activity. We know somebody is in a stress state, high anxious, they're in high beta. Doesn't mean negative. I don't want to say it's negative thinking. It's just a lot of thinking. Oh, don't forget P3 here and get to here and don't go to right and oh, my dad's going to say something to me. A lot of frantic happening, right? Instead of, what's a good shot look like? Oh, I'm going to hit this little mid-trajectory, cut 7 iron, red shot tracer. Oh, that's cool. Can't wait to do that. A little different thing going upstairs, right? Heart math, which has been around for years and years and years. Heart rate variability, kind of how the brain and the heart are working. If we're out of coherence, we can know that there's some stress response happening. We started to use NeuroPeak Intel Belt, which is, the great part about this is it's helping us with the actual mechanics of breath. We can say, oh, inhale 4, or hold for 2, exhale 4. That's great, but if somebody is like this, complete diaphragm shut down like this, is a lot different than properly doing the breath. So we're working with Intel Belt, great company, to be able to do both the mechanics of the breath, and we can do different breathing rates. They have a cool program where they're actually testing somebody's breathing mechanics. So integrating that together. I have a flow code app where we have over 600, what we call them flow triggers, right, in there. Everything from different breath works to different visualizations to different guided meditations. And we have juniors, right? So Josh is our director of the junior program for flow code. And we've got these cool, call them mental mantras. Breath equals calm. If that's all they learned when they're an 8-year-old and they're playing in their first JDT, oh yeah, coach, breath equals calm. Doesn't have to be complicated. So we want trainability. We want something to be there that they can do off of the golf course, build the reps, build the habits as they go. I'm experimenting with VR right now, very little, okay? We got our little Oculus on, okay? Put people in stressful environments, see how they can perform with all the other metrics. That's kind of where I think some of the stuff's going to be going. It doesn't work as much with golf, but other sports, we can do reaction times and cool stuff. And then my goal with the indoor facility is to train them in a closed environment first, add a little more challenge, and by the end of that hour or 2-hour session, I've put them in the most stressful situation I can. Does the technique work all the way through? That's what I want, right? Somebody hits a flop shot, they learn a flop shot, and they do it 1 out of 10 times, then 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10, you go, okay, they have the skill. Now let's do it off a tight lie. Now let's do it on, got to get up and down on 18 to win the tournament. We start escalating that challenge level. We'll see if that skill keeps showing up, okay? So I'm very much into creating safe, closed environments first and adding challenge as we go. So there's some of the technology there, Focus Calm, heart math, heart rate monitor, and there's that Intel belt that would go across you here. It's also measuring heart rate variability too, and talking about the dynamics of the breath work there. Come on. And this is just a basic thing here of what we're measuring. So on number 3, because we work most with brainwaves, is the different, whether it's beta, which is kind of our conscious here, going like this, but if it gets too high, the beta, we're getting into anxiety, and then can we start to lower that? And there's techniques, obviously, that we can do with that. The coherence is, again, part heart and mind, and coherence related to heart rate variability. But even like one thing that we've learned, like with heart math, we can teach you different breathing techniques, but what if I had to breathe through the heart? What if I could breathe through the heart with gratitude? Superpower there. Because if your mindset's about gratitude and being thankful for the situation and through your heart and you're relaxed, are we in a good state? So those are the things that we're measuring now more on the mental side of the game. And this is just this is kind of our flow code kind of on one page. We're the belief, again, that performance is state dependent. What state are you in while you perform? Now, golf is not, oh, you're either fear or flow. I want to make sure that this is not an on-off switch, everybody. Think of it like a dimmer switch. So if I'm really down that red, all the way down, fear, oh boy, right? I mean, okay. Would that affect performance? You bet. So we talk about a lot of fear is about distraction, usually into the future, of what could go wrong. A threat response. We're wired, unfortunately, to look for threats in our environment. And when we now look at a shot and go, oh, I don't like this hole. I made double last week. Oh, right? And you already have that build-up. They're in the future. It's a threat. There's doubt, and then we have a stress response. Fight, flight. Fight, this is what I used to do with putting. Little steering, little block. Okay, for full swingers, don't go left, don't go left, don't go left. I'll just push it way over there. Flight is what I did under pressure for full swing. I feel uncomfortable. Let's just get this thing over with as quickly as possible. Snap hook left. Okay? So my state, fight or flight, affected now the physical length of swing. It affected the timing. My small muscle groups went, pew, pew, right? So we look at a lot is that state, that stress response kicks in. And it started with the perception of what the shot was. So I've listened for language. If somebody says, I don't like this shot doesn't match my eyes very well, I played poorly, I go, oh boy, we got a potential threat trigger kicking in here. So perception is reality. As we move now on to the flow side, flow always starts with focus. Flow follows focus, my ability to stay in the present moment of what's relevant. Flow, we look at the situation as a challenge instead of a threat. All of you like to take on challenges, right? But a threat, I don't like that, I'm getting that way. So we're taking it on. And then flow is about you believe you have the skills to match the challenge in front of you. I have this shot, I've done it before, I got this, confidence. And then it all then comes back to clear goals. I'm clear on what I want to do. Yeah. Little hold off 3/4 7-iron mid trajectory starting at the palm tree. It's going to it's going to land 162. Clear goals. Fear. Don't go right. Don't go left. Let's hope I hit the green. So the language being used. So flow. We're focused. We're confident. We're calm. We're engaged. We're looking at it as a challenge. Fear. Oh crap. I'm in the future. What I don't want. It's a threat. This is uncomfortable. I don't know what to do with this. Let's get this over with. Or let's steer it. Okay? Now, I am biased to the mental game. It's not 100% of this. You still have to have skills. Okay? But one of my favorite sports psychology equations is Tim Galloway, I believe, is who wrote this in his Inner Game of Golf, Inner Game of Tennis, is potential minus interference equals results or performance. So we have a lot of people who have high potential, and they ain't quite showing it because there's a lot of interference they do not know how to deal with, okay? And that interference, is that internal, is it external? It's like we as coaches need to know what that interference is. We can help them. But people still think it's, nope, I got to hit balls, I got to get my golf swing, and then they step on the first tee, and then massive of interference is like, oh yeah, this tournament's really important, and the college coach is watching me. I don't want to screw up in front of them because I really want to go there. Ton of interference, no skills to deal with it, good luck. So what we're looking at, and the last thing I'm going to say on this is we're big believers in emotional regulation. What happens after the shot? So I ask a lot of my players, they fill out an assessment for me before they start working with me, and there's one thing: do you use a post-shot routine? People come back and go, what? Post-shot? I have a pre-shot routine, not a post-shot routine. So, okay. So when I see them, I said, oh, this is how my post-shot routine used to be in college. So I'd get up on the tee, hit it, snap hook it into somebody's backyard, slam the club. Now, it's a routine because I did it almost all the time, right? You're supposed to do habitually, you're supposed to do the all the time, aren't you? Very critical, very judgmental, frustration, anger, and I did not know how to regulate it for the next shot, so guess what? Rick is on the bogey train because I couldn't focus anymore. I'm still beating myself up for the last shot. A lot of these juniors, a lot of these players, they have a hard time dealing with what the result was. So now, I know it surprises you that I still may snap hook a shot, I know. Hit it left. I watch, I go, that shot's not very good. Instead of, you suck, Rick, I can't believe how bad you are. Da, da, da. That's true, that shot was 60 yards off my intention. But instead of being judgmental and critical and you're awful, I go, I wonder why it went that far offline. So a post-shot routine is curiosity over being critical, learning, was I even committed to the shot in the first place? There was water on the right. My last thought was, don't go right. That's a mental error. Come on, Rick, you can do better than that. You know you got to be focused. Come on, let's be able to shift our pictures. And there's other times I feel great, I'm in, and then still goes that way. It's like, did I have a clear target? Yes. Did I believe I could do it? Yes. Did I feel calm? Yes. It's that swing thing. Every now and then I tilt back, get under plane, and flip it. Come on, Rick, you can work on that. I'm not ignoring the shot, but can I process it in a way to where I can move on in a neutral way? Junior golfers do not possess that skill, at least 90% of them don't. And as they get older, they have a shorter fuse, more frustration, more anger, more critical voice, less enjoyment of the game, because now that outcome has become so, so important. Because I was such a hothead and needed it so much, that's the part of the game I like to coach the most, because I just want to give them emotional regulation. I want them to be able to learn, instead of just beating themselves up. Because they're going to get enough stuff from their parents or this and other thing. Give them that skill of a post-shot routine. So at Flow Code, we like to have this roadmap. We teach people with a bunch of different techniques and such as we go. So that's where my passion at is been with the mental game. And I've always wanted to be a complete golf coach. Back in the day, I did TPI. I worked for a company called Body Balance for Performance about the physical side of the game. Nowadays, I rely on people like Ken Mengel to help me understand more about the biomechanics and the physical part of it and what needs to happen because it's a key part, right? I feel I'm a very good swing coach. I feel I'm a very good mental coach. I don't do much putting coaching anymore. I don't do much short game as much. I really enjoy doing those two things. As I mentioned, course management, I love talking about that in simulators now. Like, you got Foresight, man, you can put people in different combinations and help them think through shots now in a simulated environment, which is awesome. And I believe all of us do it to a degree, but I would encourage you to also add that little more of that mental game. Get to know your player, get to know what they're feeling on that first tee, helping them with some different tools and techniques, and we can now help these golfers in all areas. So what's been really cool here in the last month is that Flow Code, my company that I co-founded, and we got Josh, we got Hallam Morgan here, is that we're now an official partner of the PGA. And this means a lot to us because us being members and the great leadership of Nikki and all these, and Allison, fantastic to be able to be a part to help not only coaches, but to help players along the way. So we'll be talking more and more about that. We've got to work with some of the best coaches around. As I mentioned, Josh is the director of the junior part of Flow Code for us. Dr. Allison Kurt, which is phenomenal, I've learned so much from her also. She just wrote a new book with Ken, so you got to check that out, is learning from her background. and her now utilizing maybe some of our flow code principles there. And we got Blake. We got Blake going on there, who is awesome with his junior golfers and being able to create this environment. We've done an event with him at Koto, which went really, really well. So we're so excited to be able to work with passionate coaches like yourself to make a difference as we go. So this is what it's about. We, as coaches, get to help people play golf and achieve their dreams and their goals and be there more than just a swing coach. They're relying on us, and they need us. And I really want to thank everybody for your attention today, because it's a privilege, and let's keep making a difference out there. Thanks.